Have you ever looked at someone like Mark Zuckerberg, the guy who literally built Facebook in his college dorm room at age 19, and thought to yourself, what is wrong with this person? Not in a bad way. I mean, genuinely, what is going on inside their head? Because here's what gets me. Most of us at 19 were figuring out what to eat for lunch, and this kid was building something that would eventually connect 3 billion people. And it's not just Zuck. Austin Russell dropped out of Stanford at 17. By 25, he had $1 billion company. Evan Spiegel built Snapchat at 21 and turned down a $3 billion offer from Facebook like it was nothing. $3 billion at 23 years old. So I had to ask, is this luck? Is it just being born rich? Is it some kind of rare gift that only a few people have? Because if it's a mindset, I needed to understand it. And what I found is honestly kind of wild. Because these people don't just think differently. They are wired differently in ways that most of us have been trained out of since we were kids. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to see power and success in a way you never have before.
Let's start with the most obvious one. Risk. If I asked you right now, hey, drop out of college, don't take a salary for 2 years, and build something that might fail, most people would say, absolutely not. But young, powerful people? They don't see that as risk. They see not trying as the risk. There's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called loss aversion bias. Most humans feel the pain of losing something way more deeply than the joy of gaining something. Like, losing $100 feels worse than finding $100 feels good. But here's the thing. Highly successful young founders seem to have a much weaker version of this fear. Or they've learned to turn it off. Mark Zuckerberg said something in an interview that stuck with me. He said, the biggest risk is not taking any risk. Now, that sounds like a bumper sticker, but think about it from his position. When he turned down Yahoo's $1 billion buyout offer in 2006, Facebook was 2 years old. His own board members thought he was out of his mind. His investors were furious. But Zuck wasn't thinking about what he could lose. He was thinking about what he was building toward. That is a fundamentally different way of processing risk. And it's not reckless. It's actually very calculated. These people are not jumping off cliffs blindfolded. They are making bets they've thought through deeply. They've just gotten comfortable with uncertainty in a way most people never do.
Here's something nobody likes to talk about, but it's true. These people are not balanced. They are not waking up at 6 a.m., going to the gym, meditating, spending quality time with family, crushing it at work, and then winding down with a good book. That is not the story. The story is more like they found one thing and they went completely insane about it. Evan Spiegel, when he was building Snapchat at Stanford, he was barely sleeping. He was coding through the night, skipping parties, annoying his roommates. He didn't have a work-life balance. He had work. And before you say that's unhealthy, you're right. In many ways, it is. But here is the psychological piece that matters. These young founders hit something called flow state almost constantly when they work. Flow state is that zone where you're so locked into what you're doing that you forget to eat. You forget what time it is. Hours feel like minutes. And research shows that people who enter flow state regularly perform significantly better and feel more satisfied with their work than people who don't. The difference is, for most of us, flow state happens accidentally. Maybe you hit it while gaming or cooking or writing something you actually care about. For people like Zuck or Spiegel, they built their entire career around the thing that puts them in flow state automatically. That's not hustle culture. That's something deeper. That's knowing yourself well enough to bet everything on it.
This one is honestly kind of mind-bending. Most people wait until they have something before they act like they have it. Most people wait until they're a CEO before they think like a CEO. But young, powerful people do it backwards. They become the identity first, and the external results follow.
When Zuckerberg was at Harvard, he wasn't thinking, I'm a college student who's building a website. He was thinking, I am building a company. He gave himself a title. He started acting like a founder before anyone called him one. There's a concept in psychology called identity-based behavior. The idea is that your actions follow your identity. If you see yourself as someone who exercises, you go to the gym. If you see yourself as a writer, you write even when nobody's paying you. And what these young power players do, almost without knowing it, is they plant a flag in an identity that most people would think is crazy for their age. Austin Russell, at 16, was introducing himself as an entrepreneur at Silicon Valley events. Not a student, not a kid, an entrepreneur. And people actually treated him differently. Doors opened, conversations shifted, and over time, he grew into the identity he'd already claimed. That's not fake it till you make it. That's something more intentional than that. It's deciding who you are and then refusing to act like anything else.
Okay, this part is important. If you go back and look at the stories of basically every young billionaire or young powerful person, you will find failure, a lot of it. Evan Spiegel's first version of Snapchat was actually called Picaboo. It flopped. Nobody used it. He had to change the name, rebuild the concept, and relaunch. Mark Zuckerberg got sued by his own co-founders. He had a product called Wirehog that completely failed before Facebook took off. His first real social network at Harvard, FaceMash, almost got him expelled. But here's the difference between how these people process failure and how most people do. Most people see failure as information about themselves. Like, I tried and I failed, which means maybe I'm not cut out for this. These people see failure as information about the strategy. Like, that approach didn't work. Okay, next approach. It's a tiny difference in wording, but it's a massive difference in how your brain responds. Psychologists call this growth mindset, a term made famous by Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford. People with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities are just set. And young, powerful people almost universally operate from a growth mindset. Failure doesn't threaten their identity. It gives them data. Let's talk about something a little more practical. One of the most underrated things about people who become powerful young, they are ridiculously good at building relationships early. Not networking in the fake business card swapping way. Real relationships. Genuine ones. When Zuckerberg was at Harvard, he wasn't just hanging out with whoever. He was very intentional about who he spent time with. He pulled in Eduardo Saverin for business side, Dustin Moskovitz for engineering. Sean Parker, who had already built Napster, became a mentor who helped Zuck understand how Silicon Valley worked. Evan Spiegel's business partner, Bobby Murphy, was someone he'd built a real friendship with first, not a transactional thing. They actually liked each other and shared a vision. Here's the psychology behind this. Humans are deeply social creatures, and the research is very clear. The fastest path to growth, resources, and opportunity is through other people, not through grinding alone. But most young people either don't build networks at all, or they only network when they desperately need something. And then it's awkward, and it doesn't work. The difference with these young power players is they built real relationships before they needed them. So when the moment came where they needed a door opened, a check written, an introduction made, the trust was already there. I want to be careful here because this one could easily sound like, just believe in yourself, bro. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, these people have a specific kind of self-belief. It's not just general confidence, it's domain-specific certainty. Zuckerberg wasn't confident about everything. He was famously awkward in social situations for years. He didn't have a big ego about his looks or his public image. But when it came to the product, to Facebook, to the vision of connecting people online, he was almost delusional in his certainty. He truly believed, even in the early days when it was just a college site, that this was going to be something massive. Evan Spiegel turned down that $3 billion offer from Facebook, not because he was reckless, but because he genuinely believed Snapchat was worth more.
and he was right.
Now, here's the thing. Where does that level of belief come from? A lot of it comes from something psychologists call deep pattern recognition, because these people have spent so much time thinking about their specific domain. They've read every book, talked to every expert, built every prototype. They start to develop an almost intuitive understanding of where things are going. It's not blind faith, it's informed conviction. And that conviction is what lets them hold steady when everyone around them says they're crazy. All right, I'm not going to give you the full highlight reel without talking about what's on the other side of this, because there is a cost. Zuckerberg lost his closest friendship, the Eduardo Severin story. That lawsuit, that betrayal, the movie was made about it, that's real. Evan Spiegel went through a brutal period where his co-founders turned on him. His early investors threatened legal action, and the whole thing almost fell apart. The level of obsession and identity investment these people put into their work, it often comes at the expense of relationships, mental health, and balance. And for every Zuckerberg who made it through, there are hundreds of people with the same mindset who burned out completely, who damaged their health, who lost friendships, and still failed. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because understanding the psychology of young, powerful people means understanding the full picture, not just the Forbes cover, but what it actually costs. The question is never, do you have what it takes? The question is, what are you actually willing to give up?
So let's bring it back. What separates someone who becomes powerful at 22 from someone who's still waiting at 32? It's not smarter. It's not luckier. It's not necessarily a better idea. It's a psychology, a specific way of seeing the world, a different relationship with risk, with failure, with identity, with obsession. And the crazy part? None of these are fixed traits you're born with. Every single one of them, the growth mindset, the identity shift, the tolerance for risk, these are learnable. Maybe not easy, but learnable. And look, I'm not here to tell you to drop out of school or go start a company tomorrow. That's not the point. The point is, if you can understand how these people think, you can start borrowing pieces of that psychology. You can start applying it to whatever you're building, whatever you're working toward. Because the world doesn't really reward the most talented person. It rewards the person who refuses to stop. All right, if this hit different for you, drop a comment below. Tell me which person in this video surprised you the most. I read every single comment. And if you want more content like this, deep dives into the psychology of successful people, subscribe. New video every week. I'll see you in the next one.